The on-deletion effect has been one of the most integral card effects in the Digimon card game since its humble beginnings, with every color and every level of Digimon having access to the effect itself. But fast 4 years later, what you can do with these on-deletion effects has grown to the point where players are cooking up scenarios and combos so wild, it may have them scratching their heads thinking, wait, can I actually do this? Is it legal? The rules governing on-deletion have always been there, but they've never really quite been tested like they have within the past couple of sets with some of the new wild and wacky cards introduced into the Digimon card game. And in this video, I want to cover a couple of rules and scenarios regarding on-deletion effects to help you better cook up your own deletion-based combos, or to help you understand fighting against your opponent's on-deletion-based crimes. Luckily, the rules for on-deletion effects are pretty straightforward. When you're deleted, go to the trash, do a thing. Keep in mind that when you activate your on-deletion effects, the card with that effect is considered in the trash at that time. The effects don't apply while they are either on the field, like before they're sent to the trash, or after if they're removed from the trash, which we'll cover in just a little bit. Let's look at an example scenario that might look familiar to some of the newcomers or players who've picked up the starter decks focusing on the adventure trait cards recently in the game, where you have two different two-color tamers on the board, and you also have a level 3 Digimon who also just happens to have the level 2 Tsunomon Digi-Egg underneath it in Inheritance. You've also got 2 memory to work with here. Let's also imagine for this example that your opponent has a 10,000 DP or higher Digimon on the board, and you want to remove it somehow, but also keep something on your side of the board. So you cook up a great idea. You're going to evolve your Agumon for 2 into the Togemon here. The Togemon says if you have tamers with up to 3 different colors on the board, then you can evolve for free into your level 5 Skullgreymon. And this is again a free evolve. The Skullgreymon gives itself Raid and Retaliation, and has the on-deletion effect to play a level 4 Digimon from the trash. You think maybe you can replay your Togemon to evolve again somehow. So looking at our play, you've evolved up here to the Skullgreymon, and you say, I'm going to attack my opponent's Digimon that has 10,000 DP or more, even though I'll lose the battle with my 9,000 DP Skullgreymon. Because I have Retaliation, they will also be deleted, and I can keep something on the board using the Skullgreymon's effect. Maybe I can actually bring the Skullgreymon back using all of these cards' effects. So let's imagine we go to the trash here, and we have a lot of effects to process, those being the Tsunomon and the Skullgreymon. The Tsunomon says that we can pull one adventure trait Digimon back from the trash to our hand, and the Skullgreymon says that we can play the level 4 from the trash or lower for free. So you think for a second, you say, okay, here's what I'll do. I will use the Tsunomon's effect first, the on-deletion effect here, to pull the Skullgreymon back. Then I'll use the Skullgreymon's effect to play the Togemon. When I play the Togemon back from the trash, then I can use its effect because it has the tamers necessary to evolve for free, and then evolve back into the Skullgreymon. Again, a zero cost evolution. Wow, so we just reassembled our stack and removed an opponent's threat on the board in one go. Pretty cool, right? Unfortunately, wrong. So in the processing of our on-deletion effects, we actually broke one of the game's core on-deletion rules. Can you figure out which one? Let's take a look at the board one more time and take a moment to really see if you can figure out what happened here. I won't keep you in much suspense. The issue with this sequence here is that when we use the Skullgreymon's on-deletion effect, it's after he's been removed from the trash from the Tsunomon card's effect. There's a rule in Digimon that says in order to activate and resolve a Digimon's on-deletion effects, it must be in the trash. And this rule check is always applied, not just when the Digimon is initially deleted after the first attack. So let's look at the steps more closely to figure out why it's not possible. So again, we have our level 3 on the board with the Tsunomon as the inheritance effect, and then we evolve into our Togemon for 2. He lets us evolve for free into the Skullgreymon. Skullgreymon gains Retaliation and Raid. He attacks into our opponent's Digimon, then deletes, or is deleted rather, by the battle. And then we have the 2 effects we need to process. The on-deletion of the Tsunomon and the Skullgreymon trigger at the same time, and in Digimon, when 2 of your effects trigger at the same time, you can actually choose how to resolve them. So you decide to resolve the Tsunomon effect first, and you pull the Skullgreymon from the trash back to your hand. And at this point, the Skullgreymon is nowhere to be found to resolve that effect. So when you go to resolve this pending Skullgreymon effect, because it's no longer in the trash, the triggered effect just can't be activated. Well, that kind of sucks, honestly. But remember I told you that when effects trigger at the same time, you can choose how to resolve them. So maybe we can look for another scenario that lets us do exactly what we want to do here. So maybe if we try to do the effects in the opposite order, it'll work. Let's test it out. All right, so something, Skullgreymon goes to the trash. And again, we have the 2 pending effects of the Skullgreymon and the Tsunomon to resolve. Now, last time we used the Tsunomon effect first, so this time let's use the Skullgreymon effect first and see if we can figure something out. So using the Skullgreymon's on deletion effect, we actually pull the Togemon out of the trash, and he gets played onto the board. Then the Togemon's on play effect triggers immediately, and we have to resolve this before moving on to anything else. So the Togemon says, okay, now you have to, or you can evolve into a level 5 adventure trait from your hand. But oh no, the Skullgreymon is still in the trash. Because Digimon forces you to resolve the most recent effects first before you can go back to the other pending effects, the Togemon's effect being applied here immediately means we can't actually use the Skullgreymon because we don't have it from the Tsunomon card effect yet. We would have to evolve into another level 5 using his effect, unfortunately, and then we would come back to the Tsunomon, resolve this, and then pull the Skullgreymon back to our hand. Which means we're kind of in the same scenario where we don't have the Skullgreymon on the board that we want to have. So now that we've tried it both ways, what does this mean? Well, honestly, it means that the combo that we want to do isn't actually possible unless we have a second Skullgreymon already in the trash to pull back from the Tsunomon effect. We need to keep the first Skullgreymon in the trash in order to resolve its effect to play down the Togemon on the board and then evolve into another Skullgreymon in hand. So what have we learned here? Well, the big takeaway for me anyway is that in order to resolve a Digimon's on deletion effect, the Digimon must be in the trash. The same thing goes whenever you have 2 or more Digimon deleted at the same time. If in the process of resolving one of the Digimon's on deletion effects you remove the other Digimon, then the other Digimon's on deletion effect cannot be activated as per the game rules. So using the adventure cards, we talked about some of the core mechanics of the on deletion effect in the Digimon card game, but there's still one more scenario that I want to cover to give you the full picture of on deletion effects. This time using the infamous Velgrmon Loop cards. Let's take a look. Alright, so for the newer players watching, I want to give a really quick overview here of the Velgrmon Loop deck, where it was a deck that allowed you to do something special where you could evolve Digimon over your tamers. So in this case, your BT7 Koichi could evolve into a level 4 BT18 Duskmon for 2 cost. Then the Duskmon could attack, and then during his attack he had an effect that said he could evolve into another Digimon, and so in this case we evolve into a Velgrmon. Now Velgrmon does a lot of really cool things, but we're not going to get into most of them in this video. We're more concerned about his end of attack effect, where if he survives his attack, at the end of that attack, you can delete a Digimon that's purple on the board, including himself, and then delete all of your opponent's lowest level Digimon on their board. So you could actually just delete him oftentimes and delete all of your opponent's Digimon, and then you have a bunch of on deletion effects from the Duskmon and the Koichi Tamer to resolve. Here the Koichi Tamer gives us +1 memory on deletion, and the Duskmon lets us play a Tamer card from the trash on the board for free. And because this guy's in the trash, we can also use this card for our effect. So let's imagine that we decide to resolve the Duskmon effect first, and we actually play the Koichi Tamer from the trash for free. Wait a minute, because of what we learned before, when the Digimon is removed from the trash, we can't resolve its pending on deletion effect. Does that mean we can't use the Koichi Tamer's effect since we've played it on the board from the trash? What do you think? For the non-seasoned players out here, this might seem like a bit of a conundrum, but actually the answer is yes. Even if you use the Duskmon effect to play the Koichi Tamer first from the trash, you can still activate the Koichi Tamer's on deletion effect to gain 1 memory. And you're probably a little confused about why this is possible, given what we just learned about the adventure answer before. But actually, we're still following the same rules. Before I mentioned that you only get the on deletion effect if the Digimon is still in the trash. But in this case, it still is. Even though we removed the Koichi from the trash, the Velgrmon, who was the top stacked most Digimon from before, is still in the trash. And all of these on deletion inheritance effects don't belong to the singular cards themselves, but they all belong to the top stacked most Digimon, in this case, the Velgrmon. So what exactly does that mean? It means that as long as the Velgrmon stays in the trash, you can use all of the inheritance cards on deletion effects, even if those inheritance cards are removed from the trash themselves during the processing of one or more of the different effects. So we can manipulate the inheritance cards any way we want and still get everything from them. With that, you now understand the 2 main tenets of on deletion effects in the Digimon card game. That being, whenever you delete cards, as long as the top stacked most Digimon stays in the trash, you get to use all of the cards' deletion effects, whether it's from that Digimon's card itself or from its inheritance. This also means that if the inheritance cards were removed during the processing of any of those effects, you still get to use their on deletion effects as well. And with that, we're going to wrap this video up. Really simple, really short, really sweet, but I hope you walked away with a really good fundamental understanding of how on deletion works in the Digimon card game. If there's anything that I missed or any questions you have, about things I didn't discuss or that you want to know more about, put them down in the comments below. Anyways, folks, I'm going to get out of here. Before you get out of here, do me a favor, hit the subscribe button, and I'll catch you in the next one. Take care.